What is syncing and sourcing, and what does it mean in the controls and automation world? So there's a couple of fundamental things you need to know to understand this concept in depth. So you need to know what current is, what voltage is, what an NPN, a PNP, so these are your bipolar junction transistors. Understand what these mean to kind of get a fundamental understanding how this works. I recommend YouTube and reading a book about microelectronics to get an in-depth theory on that. But so let's talk about first starting with what current is. Current is the measurement of how many physical charges flow past a certain point in a fixed period of time. What is voltage? Voltage is the force that moves charges from point A to point B. Why does this matter? If you have a difference of potential, so if I have point A, point B, if they're at two different voltage levels, you have voltage which will push the currents from the high voltage point to the low in conventional current flow. So why does this matter for sourcing and syncing? So when you're interacting with different field devices in the field with a PLC, you do need to consider how you wire them up. So what is a syncing device? A syncing device uses an NPN bipolar transistor. So this device in a syncing system receives current from a source. So all it does is provide a 0-volt path for that potential circuit. The sourcing device, whether it be the field device or the PLC card, is going to provide the positive voltage in this case. So let's say 12 volts DC, for example. So if my PLC is the source, it's going to provide the 24 volts DC, and the field device would be the syncing that's at 0 volts. Why does that matter? So that means that I have a path of current to flow because I have 24 volts positive at the PLC card and have 0 volts at the syncing, right? So now that current can flow into the field device to complete the circuit, right? And then a sourcing device is the opposite. It uses a PNP. So the source provides the positive 24 volts DC in this case. So if the field device is the sourcing device, it's going to provide 24 volt DC, and my PLC input card is going to be the syncing in this case. So in this configuration, current's going to flow from the field device into the PLC card. So this matters a lot. For people that do design, they catch this stuff all the time. When you're on my level, that's usually receiving design systems. This really comes into play if you're trying to replace a sensor with something else. You do need to consider if it's a syncing or sourcing, because if you hook up a sourcing to a sourcing, current's not going to flow. If you hook up a syncing to a syncing, the current's not going to flow. It's not going to work.